The day I turned 18, I didn't get a cake. I didn't get balloons, a party, or even a single happy birthday from my mom. What I got instead was a duffel bag tossed at my feet and a cold stare that froze me harder than the December wind behind our broken front door. "You're an adult now, Jason," she said, her arms crossed and lips tight. "Time for you to figure life out on your own." Then she walked back to the kitchen like she hadn't just thrown her only son out of the house without warning and without a dollar to his name. I stood there, in my beat-up sneakers and thrift store jacket, clutching a bag I didn't even remember packing. Later I'd realized she must have done it for me the night before, while I was still asleep in my bed, dreaming naive dreams of adulthood meaning freedom, not abandonment. I waited at the door for her to change her mind, or at least offer a ride to the bus station. She didn't. The front door clicked shut behind me with a finality that hit harder than any argument we'd ever had. Just like that, I was homeless. Happy birthday to me. I guess I should back up a bit, give some context before you think I'm just another teenager whining about growing up. My name's Jason, and at the time all this happened, I was still in high school. 18, sure, but not even halfway through my senior year. I had good grades, a part-time job at a local grocery store, and I kept to myself. I wasn't out partying or getting into trouble. I was, in every sense, the kind of kid who deserved a shot, or at least a roof over his head until graduation. But in my mom's eyes, the day I legally became an adult was the day I stopped being her responsibility. Growing up, it was always just the two of us. My dad was never in the picture. I asked once when I was 7 and got silence and a slammed cabinet door in response. After that, I stopped asking. Mom worked a lot of odd jobs, cleaning houses, waitressing, sometimes disappearing for a week or two and coming back with more money and more bruises. When she was around, she was either exhausted or angry, usually both. Still, I tried not to give her any more reasons to yell. I kept the apartment clean, cooked simple meals, made excuses for her when she forgot to show up to parent-teacher conferences. I learned early that love, at least in our house, was conditional. She didn't say, "I love you," not even in the background noise of routine. There were no hugs, no warmth, just rules, expectations, and plenty of guilt. If I asked for new shoes, I was ungrateful. If I got an A, it wasn't an A+. If I was quiet, I was moody. If I spoke up, I was disrespectful. The goalposts kept moving, and no matter how much I bent myself to try and meet them, it was never enough. Still, I thought that maybe, just maybe, turning 18 would be different. That she'd see I was trying. That she'd be proud, even if she didn't say it out loud. I didn't expect a party. We'd never had money for that. But maybe a dinner, or even just a quiet evening together. I was dumb enough to believe she'd care. Turns out, she'd been waiting for the day she could finally wash her hands of me. The night before my birthday, I'd come home from my shift at the store to find her in one of her moods. She was chain-smoking by the window, pacing like a caged animal. I didn't say much. I knew better, but I offered to heat up some leftover pasta. She waved me off without a word. Later, I heard her on the phone in her room, whispering furiously. I couldn't catch much, but one sentence stood out. "He's 18 tomorrow. I don't owe him a damn thing after that." I lay awake most of the night, trying to tell myself she didn't mean it, that I'd misunderstood. But deep down, I knew. I think I'd known for a long time that she was just waiting for the excuse. She wanted her life back, whatever that meant to her, and I was just in the way. Her burden, her excuse, her guilt. The morning came with silence. No breakfast, no greeting, just that bag by the door and those words. "You're an adult now. Figure life out on your own." I didn't cry. Not then. I just nodded and stepped out, feeling like I was leaving behind something that had been broken long before I realized it. I walked 2 miles to a park where I used to go as a kid, sat on a frozen bench, and opened the bag. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, 1 hoodie, a toothbrush, and the $20 I'd hidden in an envelope under my mattress. She'd taken that too. I guess she figured I didn't need it. That was the beginning. The first cut. I spent that night in the back of a laundromat, wrapped in my hoodie and listening to the buzz of machines. The next week blurred together, sleeping on benches, eating whatever I could afford, showering at the gym when I could sneak in. I didn't tell anyone from school. I was too proud, too ashamed. I kept showing up, tired and hungry, pretending everything was fine. Teachers started to notice, but no one said anything directly. I heard whispers. "He looks sick. Something's off with Jason." but no one asked. One day, my guidance counselor pulled me aside. Mrs. Whitaker. She was one of the few adults who ever looked me in the eye and meant it. She asked if everything was okay at home. I wanted to lie, but the truth just spilled out. She didn't cry or gasp. She just listened. Really listened. Then she got to work. She helped me apply for emergency housing, talked to the principal about meal vouchers, even called in a favor with a local nonprofit that helped kids in crisis. I didn't want charity, but I was out of options. That little bit of help kept me alive. Meanwhile, I never heard a word from my mom. No calls. No messages. Nothing. She vanished like I'd never existed. I was out of her life, and that was clearly the way she wanted it. But here's the thing. Every night I went to sleep in that cold shelter bed. I repeated the same promise to myself. One day, she'd regret every word she said to me. One day, I'd be so far above what she thought I could ever be, she'd have no choice but to see it. Not because I wanted her approval. I didn't. Not anymore. But because I wanted her to know she was wrong. About me. About everything. And when that day came, I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't fight. I'd just smile and walk away. I didn't know how I'd do it yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I'd make sure she regretted it. Every single word. And the first crack in that plan. It came a few weeks later, when I found out a secret about my mom she never thought I'd discover. For weeks after I got kicked out, I kept telling myself it was temporary. That she'd come around. That maybe she was just stressed, or scared, or overwhelmed. I clung to that fantasy like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Because if your own mom can throw you away like garbage and not feel anything, what does that say about you? But she didn't come around. In fact, the more I learned, the clearer it became that she'd been planning my exit for a long time. Mrs. Whitaker helped me enroll in the local youth shelter support program. It wasn't glamorous, a bunk bed in a shared room, rotating chores, group meetings twice a week, but it was warm. It was safe. And it was mine. For the first time in a long time, I had something resembling stability. I worked extra hours at the grocery store, took night shifts when I could. I kept my head down and my grades up. My social life disappeared, but so had my ability to care. Every spare minute was focused on survival. I didn't even have time to process the grief. Not until one cold Thursday afternoon in late January. It started when I ran into Mrs. Grady, our old neighbor from the building. She was walking her tiny dog outside the community center where I volunteered to get extra service hours. She recognized me instantly, though I must have looked like I'd aged 10 years since she last saw me. "Oh my goodness, Jason," she gasped, tugging her coat tighter. "Are you all right, sweetie? Your mom said you went off to college early." I blinked. "College?" She nodded. "That's what she told everyone. Said you got a scholarship and left on your birthday." She was just telling Mrs. Flanders about how proud she was. How you were becoming a man and starting your life. I didn't even know how to respond. Proud. She hadn't even texted me. Hadn't shown up to the winter graduation planning meeting, where parents were supposed to RSVP for cap and gown payments. I was standing in front of a neighbor who was being fed a fantasy while I was living in a shelter, eating instant noodles, and wondering if my uniform smelled too much like disinfectant. That was the first crack in the lie, and it only got worse from there. Turns out, my mom didn't just kick me out, she replaced me. Her younger sister, Aunt Kim, came up from Florida a week after my birthday. I didn't know this right away, but one of the younger kids from the building DM'd me on Instagram. "Your cousin's living at your place now? What happened, LOL?" I didn't even know I had a cousin. Curiosity and something darker, something like dread, made me dig. Turns out, Aunt Kim had a kid. Younger than me, maybe 16. His name was Tyler. I recognized the last name from when I used to sort mail at our apartment complex. Tyler had been living in and out of group homes. Trouble at school. Petty theft. All the things my mom accused me of when she was angry, but I never actually did. Now he was sleeping in my bed, wearing my old hoodie, going through the fridge that I used to stock with groceries I paid for. And my mom? She was posting smiling selfies with him. Caption things like, "So proud of my nephew. New beginnings, red heart." Nephew. Not son. Son didn't exist anymore, apparently. I felt like I was floating above my own life. Like someone had taken a hacksaw to the foundation of my identity and left me to balance on the splinters. The one person who was supposed to love me unconditionally had chosen to reinvent her life, and I was airbrushed out of it completely. But I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Not until I found the envelope. I was helping Mrs. Whitaker organize a charity drive at the school office. She had this big stack of mail that needed sorting: scholarship offers, community flyers, report cards. One envelope had my name on it. Thick, official looking. I opened it without thinking. Inside was a letter from Millstone Technical College, offering me a full-ride scholarship for their business management program. Full tuition covered, monthly stipend, housing options available for low-income applicants. The letter was dated December 2nd. My birthday was December 17th, and it had been sent to my home address. I stared at that paper for a full minute before the full horror of it clicked. My mom got the letter. She knew. She knew I had a way out, and she never gave it to me. I folded the paper back into the envelope, my hands trembling. "Mrs. Whitaker," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can I ask you something weird?" She looked up. "Of course. Do you know if it's legal for a parent to throw away a college offer?" Her eyes narrowed instantly. "Jason, what did you find?" I handed her the envelope. She read it twice, then sat down hard in her chair. "She knew," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "She knew I had this, and she still kicked me out." Mrs. Whitaker didn't say much, but I could tell from the way her jaw tightened that she was furious. She promised she'd help me reach out to the school directly, and she did, but it was too late. The acceptance deadline had passed. They'd already moved on to the wait list. The administrator sounded genuinely sympathetic. "If we'd heard from him in December, this would have been a done deal," she said. "But now, there's nothing we can do." I walked out of that meeting in a daze. Not because I'd lost the scholarship, but because I'd never even had a chance to accept it. My mom had stolen it from me. A way out. A future. And for what? That's when the anger finally came. Real, burning anger. The kind that sits deep in your chest and hums like a machine. I spent the next few days in a fog. I went to work. I went to class. But my mind kept replaying every moment I ever tried to impress her. Every time I cleaned the kitchen so she wouldn't yell. Every time I brought home an A, thinking maybe that would be the thing that made her see me. She didn't see me. She never did. She saw what she needed: a scapegoat, a workhorse. And when I stopped serving that purpose, she replaced me without blinking. What pushed me over the edge, what turned that anger into something more focused, more dangerous, was the birthday party. Not my birthday party. Tyler's. It was on February 20th, a Saturday. I only knew because someone tagged the apartment complex in a post, and I followed the breadcrumbs like a bloodhound. She threw him a full party. Balloons. A banner. A freaking cake that had, "Welcome to the family, Tyler," written in cursive icing. I saw it all. The videos. The group selfies. My mom, drunk and dancing, holding a red Solo cup like she was 21 again. Tyler, grinning like he owned the place. I don't remember making the decision to go there. I just remember standing outside the building, watching the party through the windows, my fists clenched in my coat pockets. I wasn't going to go in. I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. But then I saw her come outside to smoke, just like she used to, and something inside me snapped. I walked up slowly. She didn't see me until I was a few feet away. When she did, she froze. Then she smiled, the fake one she used to give teachers and landlords. "Well, look who finally grew a spine," she said. I said nothing. She gestured toward the apartment. "You're not invited." I figured. She took a drag of her cigarette. "You still mad I gave you the boot? Grow up, Jason. Life's tough. I did you a favor. You threw away my scholarship." That wiped the smirk off her face. "I found the letter," I said, voice tight. "You knew I got accepted. And you hid it." "Why?" She scoffed. "Because I knew you'd screw it up. You couldn't even clean your room." "What? I was supposed to let you waste someone's money on some fantasy you drop out of in a semester? You never even gave me the chance." "I gave you life," she said, voice rising. "And I gave you 18 years. That's more than I got from my parents." "You didn't give me anything," I said, stepping forward. You took everything. And you still are. But not for long." She narrowed her eyes. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's a promise." And with that, I turned and walked away. I could feel her eyes on me the whole time. But I didn't look back. Not once. That was the breaking point. The last time I saw her face to face. But it wasn't the last time she'd hear from me. Because from that moment on, I stopped surviving. And I started planning. I'd like to say that after confronting my mom, something inside me shifted right away, that I walked off into some metaphorical sunrise, head high, heart strong, already halfway to a better life. But that's not what happened. What happened was, I fell apart. Not on the outside. On the outside, I kept doing what I needed to do. Showed up for work. Sat in class. Nodded through meetings with my case manager. To anyone watching, I looked like any other tired teenager counting down the days till graduation. But inside, I was unraveling. That confrontation with my mom, her coldness, her certainty that I would fail, it didn't just hurt. It hollowed me. Everything I'd been holding together with duct tape and denial came crashing down. The rejection, the betrayal, the way she'd replaced me like I was an old piece of furniture. I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how easily she'd taken everything I worked for, not just the scholarship, but the belief that I mattered. And maybe, worst of all, I believed her. For a while at least. I started showing up late to work. Not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't sleep at night. My mind would loop the same memories over and over. Her telling the neighbors I'd gone to college, the photos of her smiling with my replacement, that damn cake with "Welcome to the family" written across it like a joke. I'd lie there in the shelter bunk, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, wondering if maybe she was right. Maybe I would screw everything up. Maybe I was broken. I flunked 2 quizzes in a row. Forgot to bring my gym clothes. Missed a meeting with my counselor. Small things, but they added up. One Friday afternoon, I skipped school altogether. Just couldn't do it. I sat on a bench behind the strip mall near the grocery store and stared at the cracks in the pavement until the sun started to set. I didn't cry. I didn't do anything. I just sat there, thinking, I can't keep this up. I can't keep pretending I'm okay. That was the lowest point. My rock bottom. But funny thing about rock bottom, it's quiet. No one's cheering. No one's watching. No one's waiting for you to climb out. You just sit there with your pain until eventually you either give up or you decide to move. And that's what I did. One small move. I called Mrs. Whitaker. I don't even remember dialing her number. I just remember her voice on the other end. Calm, warm, like someone flipping on a light in a dark room. I told her everything. Not just about my mom, but about how I felt. The weight, the exhaustion, the shame. I expected her to give me a pep talk, something about how I was strong and capable and all that. Instead, she just said, "Jason, you don't have to carry this alone anymore." And then she showed up. She started checking in every few days. Nothing big, just little texts. "Did you eat today? Need help with homework? Want me to proofread that essay?" Those tiny lifelines started pulling me out of the fog, reminding me that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible. That spring, something began to shift. I stopped thinking about proving my mom wrong and started thinking about proving myself right. That I was worth more than how she treated me. That I could build something. Not out of spite. Not out of rage. But out of a quiet, stubborn belief that I deserved better. I poured myself into school. Started showing up early. Stayed late. Asked questions. Took notes like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. Education wasn't just a way out for me. It was a lifeline. It was the first thing I had that belonged only to me. And I was good at it. Not in a flashy, valedictorian way, but in a steady, consistent, undeniable way. My grades climbed back up. I started tutoring other students in math and econ, not for the money, though it helped, but because I liked it. It made me feel smart, useful, like I had something to offer. At night, I'd stay after hours at the youth center, reading articles about small businesses, investment strategies, tax loopholes, anything that gave me an edge. I was obsessed, not with getting rich, but with getting free. I wanted to understand the world in a way my mom never did. I wanted to make choices she never gave me. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I started to rise. One of the shelter volunteers, Malik, noticed how much time I spent in the computer lab. He was this older guy, ex-military, real no-nonsense. One day, he sat down next to me and said, "You got hustle, kid. You ever think about starting your own thing?" That idea stuck in my head like a splinter. My own thing. At first, I laughed it off. What could I possibly start? I was broke, living in a shelter. No contacts. No fancy degree. But Malik kept pushing. He told me how he used to flip used cell phones on Craigslist. How he started with nothing but a cracked iPhone and turned it into a side hustle that paid his rent. "It's not about starting big," he said. "It's about starting smart." So I started. I noticed people at the shelter always needed basics: socks, toothpaste, razors, chargers, but no one wanted to waste time going across town to the cheap stores. So I found a dollar store near my job that gave small bulk discounts. Bought a handful of items. resold them for 50 cents more in the shelter common room. People paid for the convenience. It wasn't much, but it was mine. That tiny micro business turned into a weekly thing. I kept records, tracked profits, learned what people wanted, when, and how to price things. I reinvested every dollar. Bought used books on sales strategy and customer psychology. Watched YouTube videos about drop shipping and affiliate marketing. By summer, I had a binder full of notes and a spreadsheet that made me feel like a Wall Street analyst. More importantly, I had confidence. Real, earned confidence. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing you built something from scratch and no one can take it away from you. When graduation rolled around in June, I didn't invite anyone. No mom. No distant relatives. Just me in a cap and gown, walking across a stage with a piece of paper that said I mattered. That I made it. Mrs. Whitaker was in the front row. Malik was there too, clapping like he'd raised me himself. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a family, not the kind you're born into, but the kind you find when everything else falls apart. After the ceremony, I didn't cry. I just stood there, staring at the crowd, realizing that I'd done it. I'd survived. I'd rebuilt. And I wasn't done yet. That fall, I enrolled in a community college. Not Millstone Tech. They'd given my scholarship away months ago. But it didn't matter. I got financial aid. Applied for every grant and local scholarship I could find. Took out a small loan. And I kept working. Evenings at the store, weekends running my little supply stand at the shelter. I moved into a subsidized student housing unit. Tiny but mine. First night there, I slept on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by textbooks and boxes of dollar store toothpaste. And I was happy, because I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, grade by grade. By the time I turned 19, I was running an online shop out of my dorm. Nothing fancy, just curated care packages for students and shelter programs. Basic needs bundled together. I'd personalize them, add handwritten notes, even offer discounts to shelters I'd once stayed at. Orders started coming in. Word spread. I wasn't just rebuilding my life anymore. I was building something bigger. And yet, through all of it, the grades, the business, the new life, there was one thing I couldn't shake. The promise I made to myself. That one day, she would regret everything. I didn't obsess over it the way I used to. But it lingered, like a low hum in the back of my mind. Because while I was rising, I knew something else was happening. Something on the other side of town. Something about to collapse. The thing about revenge is it doesn't come to you. You have to build it. Slowly, brick by brick. Not in a movie-style way, where the protagonist just magically levels up, gets a haircut, and launches some dramatic confrontation that changes everything overnight. No, real revenge, the kind that stings, takes patience, timing, discipline. You don't get even by yelling louder or throwing punches. You win by being so successful, so undeniable, that the person who wronged you has no choice but to see you, acknowledge you, and regret every single choice that brought them to that moment. And I was getting closer. By the time I turned 20, my side hustle had grown legs. What started as a box of care products and snacks in a shelter common room had become a modest but steady e-commerce business. I called it Packlight. Simple, clean branding. Care packages tailored to college students, low-income families, and shelters. I'd built a Shopify store, learned basic SEO, and invested every dollar I earned back into stock and site design. But it wasn't just about money. It was about building something that no one could take away from me. I kept it all quiet. No bragging. No posts. Not even my professors knew the full scope. I didn't want eyes on me until I was ready. I still remembered the look on my mom's face when I told her she'd stolen my scholarship. That cold, smug smirk that said, "You'll never be anything without me." I wanted to burn that image out of my brain. And the only way to do it was to make her eat her words. But for that to happen, I needed more than success. I needed a plan. And strangely enough, it started with Tyler. I didn't care much about him at first. He was just the pawn in all of this, a new warm body my mom could manipulate, parade around, and guilt trip into loyalty. I figured he'd disappear like everyone else in her life eventually. But then I got an email from a girl I used to go to high school with. We weren't close, just had a few classes together. She messaged me randomly one afternoon, subject line, "Hey, is this your cousin?" There was a screenshot attached. A Reddit thread. One of those anonymous community pages for our hometown. The post title? Tyler from Unit 14 sees stealing phones from gym lockers again. I opened it with a sinking feeling. The thread had a few blurry photos. Someone caught him red-handed going through a locker at a local gym. Another comment mentioned how he'd been banned from 2 different youth centers. A third claimed he tried to sell stolen AirPods at the mall kiosk. It didn't take much digging after that. A quick search of his full name on Facebook led me to a few public posts, angry rants from people who'd been scammed, PayPal chargebacks, lost dog fundraisers that seemed off. I even found an old post from Florida. Watch out for this kid, known for stealing laptops from schools. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the screen. It was all so familiar. This was who she kicked me out for. This was the person she gave my bed, my room, my life to. Suddenly, I understood something I hadn't before. My mom didn't just betray me. She gambled. She wanted to rewrite her narrative, become the good, loving guardian to a troubled kid. The kind of person she could show off to neighbors and post about online. But she was too arrogant to see that she was repeating the same pattern. That gave me my first opening. Not revenge yet. Information. I started watching Tyler. From a distance, online only. Social media, local Reddit pages, group chats from high school alumni. He was messy, the kind of kid who bragged about the dumbest things. He'd post photos with wads of cash, claiming it was from legit side hustles. He made TikToks flexing in sneakers I recognized from my old closet. The ones I saved up for junior year. The ones I thought I lost in a move. He was walking around in pieces of my past, smiling like he earned them. That's when I started the burner. Fake Reddit account. New Instagram profile. Totally untraceable. I used it to quietly comment on threads, stir conversations about Tyler, ask loaded questions. Nothing obvious, just enough to make people curious. The more he posted, the more I nudged the narrative. I didn't need to fabricate anything. His own history was the bomb. I just handed people the match. But the real opportunity came from something unexpected. I was working a shift at the grocery store on a sleepy Sunday when I saw her. My mom. She walked in like nothing had changed. Holding a basket, hair curled, cheap perfume trailing behind her like a cloud of denial. She didn't see me. I was bagging groceries at the end of the express lane. But I saw her, and I saw who she was with. A man. Tall. Late 40s maybe. Suit jacket over jeans. Looked expensive, but casual, like someone trying to look humble and missing by a mile. They weren't holding hands, but the body language was unmistakable. She was laughing, twirling her hair, doing that fake giggle she used when she wanted something. They walked right past me. She didn't even glance up. I asked the cashier next to me, "Do you know who that guy is?" "Oh, him," she said. "That's Rick. Comes in all the time. Owns a few of those tech stores downtown. I think he's loaded." Rick. That gave me my second opening. I waited until she left, then asked to take my break early. Stepped outside, pulled out my phone, searched Rick Tech Store hometown. Boom. There he was. Rick Salvatore, owner of 3 small electronics stores in our county. Did local commercials. Had a LinkedIn. Even had an Instagram. Mostly pictures of the stores, a couple of photos at trade shows, and recently her. Buried in the feed was a post from Valentine's Day. A photo of a dinner plate. Candlelit table. And just visible at the edge of the frame, her hand. The ring she always wore. Caption, "Best V-Day I've had in years." Lucky man. That confirmed it. She'd landed someone new. Someone with money. Which meant she had something to lose. And that was my third opening. I spent the next 2 months building the pieces of what would become the setup. First, I revamped Packlight. Got serious. Registered the business. Opened a P.O. box. Applied for a microgrant from a nonprofit that helped youth entrepreneurs, and got it. I used the funds to invest in inventory, automate parts of my fulfillment process, and even hire a part-time web designer from a freelancing site to polish the site and rebrand. Then I created a special section on the site, Packlight Partners, a program for businesses to sponsor care packages for youth shelters, complete with branded thank you notes, social media shoutouts, and a community partner badge. Guess who I reached out to? Rick's Stores. I used a fake name, posed as the marketing manager, sent a formal pitch via email, complete with mock-ups. I knew he'd bite. He was exactly the kind of guy who wanted to look generous. We went back and forth for a week. Eventually, I got a confirmation. "This looks great. I'm happy to donate some accessories and be featured. Just keep our brand visible. My girlfriend loves this kind of community work." His girlfriend. Of course. She'd spun some lie about how she used to work with kids or ran support groups, or whatever other garbage she fed him. And now, she was about to be publicly linked to my company, the company built by the son she abandoned. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I needed one more thing. The receipts. So I started collecting them. Every Reddit thread. Every photo of Tyler holding stolen goods. Every comment from someone who claimed he owed them money. Every blurry gym security photo. Every Twitter rant. Every TikTok with flexing cash. I created a Google Drive folder, organized by date, with captions and sources. Then I backed it up 6 different ways. And finally, the centerpiece. I ordered one of my own care packages. But this one had something special inside. Not just toothpaste and snacks, but a typed letter, signed with my full name, addressed to Rick. Inside, I thanked him for supporting youth like me, and mentioned how I'd started the business after being kicked out of my home at 18, with no support from my family. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. I let the timeline, the tone, and the emotional weight speak for itself. I wanted him to ask questions. I wanted her to sweat. Because now, I had everything. Proof of her betrayal. A platform she couldn't ignore. And a reputation she was just starting to build. One that I could crumble with a single truth. But I wasn't going to drop the bomb just yet. I wanted her to see me. Truly see me. And when she did, when it finally hit her who I'd become, what I'd built from the ashes she left behind, that's when the real revenge would begin. Revenge isn't loud. It doesn't show up in a blaze of glory or a screaming match in a parking lot. The best kind of revenge walks in quietly, takes its seat at the table you built, and waits patiently as your enemies realize they're dining on their own consequences. And that's exactly what I did. Once Rick agreed to be featured as a Packlight partner, I waited 3 weeks before the campaign launched. Just enough time to set the stage. I updated the site, made it look professional, minimalistic with clean lines, soft colors, and big text thanking Rick's store for sponsoring care packages for underprivileged youth. And then I added one final touch, a spotlight story on the homepage. A personal essay, titled, Kicked Out at 18. Now I'm sending help to kids like me. It was short, no more than 600 words. No names, no sobbing dramatics. Just my voice, calm, clear, and devastatingly honest. I told the story of the morning I turned 18. The packed bag, the closed door, the realization that I wasn't loved, just tolerated until I was no longer legally required. I wrote about sleeping in a laundromat, missing my scholarship offer, and discovering I'd been replaced in my own home. I didn't beg for pity. I just told the truth. And at the end of the essay, I thanked our new business partners, including a local electronics company owned by a man who reminds me there are kind, generous adults out there. I knew my mom would see it. Rick followed the business's Instagram, and I'd tagged him in the post that shared the article. It started gaining traction fast. Small accounts, nonprofit blogs, and a couple local influencers reposted it. The shelter I used to stay at even left a comment saying how proud they were of me. And then, 3 days later, I got the message. From Rick. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. Rick. Hey, Jason. Just read your story on the site. Powerful stuff. Forgive me for asking, but is your mom's name Denise? I stared at the screen, heart pounding. And then I typed. Me. Yeah, she is. He didn't reply. Not immediately. But I knew I'd just tossed a grenade into his carefully curated image of her. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Voicemail. It was her. Her voice was breathy, nervous. Jason, I saw what you wrote. I think we need to talk. Please. I didn't respond. Another voicemail came the next day. Then a third, each more frantic than the last. By the end of the week, the Packlight Instagram was flooded with new followers, many commenting about the story, sharing their own experiences. But a very specific few, had something else to say. Hey, is that the same Denise from Unit 14C? Wait, she's the mom? Wow. Kicked him out for Tyler? That lady was always shady. Knew it. And then someone, not me, posted a link in the comments to the Reddit threads about Tyler. The gym thefts, the scams, the phone locker drama. It spread quickly. You can't contain that kind of fire once it's lit. Within days, people were putting it all together. The woman who claimed to be a selfless guardian of a troubled teen? She'd kicked out her own son and covered up the crimes of a kid with a growing reputation for stealing. Rick reached out again, this time with less curiosity and more heartbreak. Rick, she told me you ran away. Said you were trouble. that she saved your cousin from an abusive home. I believed her. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. He pulled his sponsorship quietly. No drama, no headlines. But I noticed that all her photos disappeared from his Instagram, one by one, over the course of a few days. And then, the fallout. It started when Tyler got arrested. Not for the gym thefts. For something stupider. He tried to sell stolen laptops on Facebook Marketplace, using his real profile. The cops traced the serial numbers back to a community center that had been robbed the week before. He was caught on camera. Full face, full name. He was picked up 2 days before my 21st birthday. And guess who showed up on the local police blotter? You guessed it. Denise Williams, 46 years old, charged with obstruction and possession of stolen property. Turns out, when the cops came knocking, she tried to hide the laptops in the crawl space. Said they were donations, and she didn't know they were stolen. They didn't buy it. Her mugshot was grainy. She looked older, tired. That fake confidence drained from her face like she'd just realized the party was over and the check had bounced. I saved the photo. Not to gloat. Just to remind myself that karma is real. Even if it's slow. Rick cut ties with her. I heard from someone at the store that he was furious. She tried to play the victim. Said I was lying. Said the internet had twisted the story. But the receipts were public. The truth didn't need my defense. It stood on its own. She lost the apartment soon after. Couldn't pay rent without Rick. The electronics stores stopped donating to her causes. She tried to crowdfund for legal fees, but it flopped. Someone linked my essay under the GoFundMe. The goal never cracked $100. I never visited her. Never called. I didn't need to. Because I'd already won. Not by shouting. Not by slamming doors. But by living well. By building something she couldn't touch. By becoming exactly the kind of man she swore I'd never be. Today, I run Packlight full-time. We ship nationwide. Partner with shelters in 4 states. I've spoken at conferences. Mentored teens who've been through worse than I have. My story made it to a few podcasts, even got picked up by a nonprofit documentary crew. But I don't tell this story to inspire pity. I tell it to remind people. Sometimes the people who should protect you won't. Sometimes family isn't blood. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud at all. It's quiet, measured, and served ice cold, with tracking, delivery, and a handwritten thank you note.